Mary Me, Annie here. Welcome to the stone casting series. My first video in the series was about blue lace agate, and this video is going to be a sample casting in which we would use blue lace agate. I hope to scatter throughout the videos on each of the stones that I work with and their meaning to me, different ways to use stones in casting, because I realize that many of you are not familiar with how to cast, what to do with your stones once you have them if this is something you are trying out. This particular casting I call an elemental single stone casting. So in this particular instance, if you might remember in the intro video, I talked about using a stone that represents you, picking up some kind of a stone, a local generic kind of stone preferably, that is the you in the mix of your stones. In this particular instance, we're going to be taking that out because we are working with a specific stone, blue lace agate, and we have decided it is us for this particular casting. This casting assumes you know a bit about the elements because it is an elemental casting. So I will begin the cast by preparing the area in which I'm going to cast by putting down 4 large stones that are markers for the quarters. All of our stones would be in a container of some kind. You may decide if you want to keep them in your container or hold them in your hands to release them. I tend to keep mine in my container only because I put them in my hands and I drop something almost always. Spend a lot of time crawling around the floor trying to get missing stones that way. Keep them together. Even if you are going to use a single stone only, the stones are never separate from each other. The ones you work with are bound to each other. It would be like casting the runes but leaving some out, or doing tarot but leaving some of the cards out. Your stones should all be together. Now in this particular casting, we are only interested in the fall of blue lace agate. Let's see in this casting where it falls. We are going to ask blue lace agate to show us where we have strayed from center. Now keep in mind when you do an elemental casting that it is the quadrant of the element that is the playing field for elemental questions. We really have a quartered circle when we are working with elemental questions. So we have asked the question for blue lace agate to give us an indication where we have strayed from center, which is where we want to be in the balancing power of blue lace agate. We're going to use the blue lace agate stone as the representative that is us in the casting we're about to make. So I like to just take a moment to ask the question, calm and center myself, just like I would for a ritual, and then offer the casting. Now just to make it clearer on video, I'm going to remove all the stones but the blue lace agate so you can see where it fell. A bit easier. If I were doing this for myself, I wouldn't be removing the other stones. Sometimes I think I'm going to do a single stone casting. And either I feel the signals I'm getting or the instinct I'm feeling, what's coming through me, seems a bit scattered, and I might use the stones around it in some way, even though originally I thought I was going to be using just one stone. So I don't pick them up in reality. I'm doing it here just to make it easier to see where it fell. So blue lace agate, which represents us in this casting, has fallen in the quadrant of air. There's a lot we can learn from that casting. The casting question was, where are we moved away from center, away from balance? Using the blue lace agate, the stone of balance, to indicate us in relationship to balance. And the blue lace agate in this particular casting told us we were leaning towards air, as an excess of air. There's a couple of different ways to look at this then, all which should be taken into consideration on a reading for yourself or another. Air, a creature of communication. The stone's telling us a little too much of it. So it could mean we're spouting off at the mouth too much, because we know that the power of blue lace agate, balanced to center, is the thought and consideration that goes behind words. So we're being too airy with our words, they're just coming out of our mouths and maybe don't have any meaning, or at least we didn't think about the meaning it would appear to be when listened to by someone else. An excess of air when it comes to blue lace agate could very well be empty words, yattering on. I own up to that one a lot in life. If this reading were for me, I would think twice about how I am speaking and communicating. Is it with intent, or am I yattering on? It says we're out of balance. So it could be speaking without thinking, speaking to hear ourselves speak. We all do that sometimes, don't we? I hope it's not only me that has that fault. The casting tells us to pause and think, where are our words coming from? There's also the other possibility of air in relationship to blue lace agate, which has to do with listening, not just speaking, but listening. And balance in our life. We're acknowledging that there is some source of imbalance. Blue lace agate has put us squarely in the middle of air. And we might also stop to think, are we using the power of listening appropriately? Even if we are listening. Remember when I was talking to you about blue lace agate and I said we can sometimes, when somebody's talking to us, be so busy in our mind thinking about what we want to say next or making our own plan, we're not hearing what they are saying. An imbalance indicated by the element of air. When we've used blue lace agate as our single stone elemental reading, we'll have to do either with the words we speak, how we are saying them, and therefore affecting the impact of those words. And it could as well, perhaps in addition to, or could be, are we listening? A lack of communicating effectively, whether it is our speech or whether it is listening to the speech of others, brings imbalance to our life. And the power of blue lace agate lies in the center point, being balanced between all of the elements. This we know about this stone. If I were doing this cast for myself, I'd stop and think about my words. Do they have meaning? Am I yattering on? Am I saying truly what I feel in a respectful way? And am I listening? Taking on listening as a spiritual activity, to truly be present and listen to the speech of those around me. I hope this has given you one example, and I hope to do many more over time. A way to take a reading out of your stones. This can help as you are growing and learning your stones, because perhaps you are growing your stones as you're following through on this series, and for the moment you only really have what you need in the way of lace agate, whether in reality or a stone you've decided is lace agate. You can do a reading with that one stone that you are familiarized with until you start adding more stones and more knowledge to your field. So I hope to do a lot more of these examples going forward. I think I may have mentioned in the video that I started this series out with that some of these castings are ones I was shown originally when I learned about stone casting. Some of them I've learned over time from other people who cast, and a great number of them are ones I've developed over time to do intuitive readings on the stones. So I also encourage you to be doing the same thing. Take up the castings that interest you, try them and see if you get readings from them. Some will work for you and some won't. Using the knowledge of those who have already come up with different ways to cast stones. And then try some ideas of your own. You're not really inventing in the sense that you're listening to something in here that guides you in a certain way to do it. I personally think it's easier to do this kind of making your own castings up with stones than it is with other forms of reading. However, The important thing is that you enter into your casting with a specific question in mind. That's the only thing that's in common in the way you enter into castings. You may have different layouts and different things that mean different things to you, different plots and plans of how you interpret the stones, but always the one thing in common is you don't enter into the casting without having in mind the question you are asking. I wish you mirth and reverence. Mary Part.